nobody believed in the early 50s that the car wouldn't catch on.
Lots of other councils really struggling to deliver their own housing.
If you speak to most people in Harlow in their living memory, the town centre was thriving. Everything good about the world was invented in Harlow. I'm Dan Swords, leader of Harlow Council.
Dan, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Very good to have you on. So this is a UKREiiF special. But to start with, I just wanted to ask, you became leader of Harlow at 22, making you one of the youngest leaders of a local authority in the country. And this is an age where most people haven't actually worked out what they want to do yet.
Doesn't mean I have.
Yeah. Well, do you remember the moment that you decided that you want to enter politics?
That is a very good question. So when I was about 16, thought I was going to be a rugby player. And then by the time I was 18, I stopped playing rugby. Didn't know what I wanted to do at the time. And although I was vaguely interested in politics, I knew I didn't want to go to uni, but that was about it. So I had my tutor at college said, why don't you just write some MPs, see if they can give you some advice. I thought that sounds sensible, get my parents off my back for a little while. And I did. The only MP I actually wrote to was a chap called Rob Halfon, who was the MP for Harlow at the time, and he replied and invited me to meet him in Westminster, which I did. So yeah, I was 18 then.
And were you living in Harlow then?
No, I didn't grow up in Harlow. I was in Surrey then, and I went to meet him, and he offered me a job, and the rest is history, really. So
wow, so you just worked with him? And
worked with him for a while. Done lots of things in Westminster, and then went to run an election campaign in Harlow, because despite the fact I had a Conservative MP at the time, it had been a Labour council for a long time, and so I just went to run the campaign for them, then ended up standing, and then winning, and you, I think, won in quite a tough climate, or maybe the second time you won was a particularly tough climate. Yeah, so we took control of the council in 2021, and actually, it's a really interesting story because it's an amazing town that had, in my view, just been let down for a very long time, and particularly in respect of regeneration, those sort of things. So yeah, we won very convincingly in 2021, and then last May, so 2024, we were absolutely odds on to lose the council, and it to go Labour, and it was their number one target seat in the country and all this sort of stuff. But we held on against the odds.
Well, it's a testament to people believing in your vision.
I would like to think that.
Back to sort of Harlow, the place itself, it's a new town, it's a unique place, but it's also got some big challenges. So I think you talk a lot about regeneration. So what do you see the main challenges for you kind of driving the town forward?
Yeah, exactly that. I mean, it is an amazing place, without a doubt. It's now destined to be the fastest growing place in the country. So in a decade, bigger than Cambridge. When you say it like that, people think you're talking absolute rubbish. That in itself brings an enormous challenge because you've got a town that was, let's just say, not always built with architecture up to your standards, and very concrete dominated, that has aged enormously.
A lot of it's going to be up to our standards in the future. We just designed quite a lot of it now. And then you're building 23,000 new homes around that. That in itself brings a big challenge because how do you integrate the new and the old? So actually I see it in a completely different way. I see what we're doing as the rebirth of the new town. Yeah, it's a very similar concept. All of the things that we're now doing are exactly what they'd done 75 years ago, just in a far more contemporary fashion. So actually it's about leading the rebirth of that. Which is enormously exciting. I mean, there's all the usual challenges, viabilities, land values, whatever. But I say to people very often, actually our biggest risk, we have the opportunity at the moment to change a place for a generation. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Not many people can say that. Our biggest risk is not realising that. Dropping the ball, that's the bigger risk than financial or any other, because then we will have failed a place.
It's really interesting, actually. One of our guests a few weeks ago, who is the head of placemaking and design over in Brent, was actually born in Harlow. And he was talking passionately about how that influenced his career into design and into kind of policy and planning. So
there's something so utopian about new towns. But then if you had gone to Harlow at the wrong point, at some point in the last 10 years, you know, that utopianism sort of relies on having quite a lot of footfall and good retail, and so, you know, the internet has kind of sucked the centre of some towns out.
I mean, it was well ahead of its time in some senses. You know, Harlow was doing 15-minute neighbourhoods 75 years before they were cool, but likewise, the town centre particularly. So, Freddie Gibbard was the master planner of Harlow and chief architect, although he didn't actually, for some reason, have that much involvement in the town centre. And his view was, whilst it was really popular at the time, particularly sort of 70s, 80s, 90s, the town centre was the big failing of it, because it didn't have any residential. So come 6 o'clock, it was a ghost town. And he said, I just don't believe it's going to survive the change of the future. Having said that, the other big mistake he made when designing the new town was designing it for like one car for every 7 households, because he believed in the early 50s that the car wouldn't catch on. But it is interesting with the town centre. I mean, you know,
he could have put the station a bit nearer the middle if he wanted to.
Yeah, we are also the only new town that doesn't have its station in the town centre. But the point being that if you speak to most people in Harlow in their living memory, the town centre was thriving. They don't tend to think that's, you know, it's changed because of design flaws or even shopping habits or whatever the case is, and of course they play a part in it. But the truth is, as the, you know, whatever way you want to put it, the state, the public sector, local authority, we haven't done a good enough job to tackle that, to change that, to actually optimise that change. You know, enormous opportunity, which is obviously what we intend to do now, to dramatically change it.
And so you're kind of fixing the Freddie Gibbons's problem, right, by putting residential back into the town centre.
Yeah, I mean, in one sense, it becomes a neighbourhood in its own right.
Yeah.
You know, the plan is over the next 10, hopefully less years, 3,500 units in the town centre, as well as, you know, everything else around it. But it has to serve the purpose not just as a, you know, town centre for people that live in Harlow, also as a regional destination. And that isn't just shopping anymore. You know, we're doing some really exciting stuff, arts and cultural quarter, you know, big focus on sort of hospitality and leisure, as well as the residential. But with the residential, it's not like a, you know, golden bullet to it. That then becomes people's homes. So it has to be green and spaces for their kids and healthcare and education, you know, all those things that people ordinarily absolutely are embedded into a city, but not often a town centre.
Can I ask, in terms of, because with this ambitious growth, how do you find the reaction from the existing community, and how do you work with that community as well as, you know, taking Harlow forward? Yeah,
it's a really interesting question, because of course, if you take the sort of existing community and those that have grown up in Harlow, they all lived in green homes that were built on green fields, and, you know, the whole town was. But done in a very comprehensive, well-planned way, and therefore doesn't feel like an urban extension sort of thing. It's interesting because there is a slight juxtaposition in that the large majority of people say, hurry up, you know, what is taking so long? Well, I've heard it all before, just want it to happen type thing. And that, you know, in a sceptically positive fashion of, you know, they want this stuff to happen. The bigger challenge is the scale of housing growth. Because when you say this is 50% growth over a decade, of course the immediate concerns are, what about the GPs, what about the schools, what about the hospital, so on and so forth. That is a challenge to sell, absolutely. And that's why it's the relationship we try and embed is not one of, well, this is what we're doing and this is how it's going to benefit you. It's, okay, let's work with you. You tell us what you want to see out of this and how it's going to benefit you. So, yeah, it is an enormous challenge.
So just getting the planning, having the vision and getting planning for it, that's, you know, in some ways the easy bit. And actually, I think some of the town centre regen stuff was already in the pipeline before you were elected. But it stalled. So I think Strawberry Star owned it. And the most, you know, the sort of innovation that
Do you want to talk about the partnership that you got with Hill?
Yeah.
And kind of explain how that unlocks some of the challenges of viability.
So it's funny being at REiiF and talking about this, because without being mean or disparaging to anywhere else, you go around and listen to pretty much every local authority of whatever description, and they will say, we've got a fantastic plan for our place. And wherever, insert name here is the best place to invest or whatever. What you hear so few of them talk about is how it's being delivered. And understand why that is a big challenge. But as you said, getting planning and all of those things is one part. Delivering is the more important part. So we set up the Harlow Regeneration partnership with Hill Group. That does a number of things. Obviously, it actually physically delivers things and builds things. But the second thing it does is give you far more credibility. Particularly when you're negotiating or whatever the case is, because you actually have a mechanism to deliver it that's in your control, as opposed to relying on other people. So what we have done over the last few years is an awful lot of acquiring of town centre sites and in neighbourhoods as well, actually. Because again, it gives us direct control to be able to determine what the future is. But the partnership with Hill was fantastic. The other thing is, which again I think occasionally local authorities struggle with, is they take this view that, well, that's the job of the private sector. They will do this for us. But we want the money from it, we want the benefit from it, but they do it all. That's not what this partnership is at all. It's a 50-50 LLP. So we share the risk, we share the reward, you have the ups and downs together, and we play a very, very active role in it, and bring our sort of might and power and things at our disposal to the partnership, and they bring their expertise and ability to construct things, and therefore you get much greater benefit than just, but we're a council, we don't deal with. And also I think
you start to unlock other opportunities.
Absolutely.
So I think, what would we're at UKREiiF, I'd be interested to hear how you're finding it, what's the vibe, and also what would your message be to developers, other investors about, coming to Harlow?
Well, the message would absolutely be come to Harlow. Like I say, fastest growing place in the country, and it's not just about housing numbers. It's about Harlow's home to the UK's most powerful supercomputer. All sorts of amazing stuff. Huge growth in AI and data centres, and some amazing. We were named the UK's #1 tech hub, and all sorts of. Incredible things people don't often think of, not just location, proximity to London, to Cambridge, all of those things, but actually is, like I said, we are at a moment currently, when I say we, I mean a partnership between the council, the private sector and anyone else that wants to get involved, where we can literally rebuild one of Britain's most iconic new towns. That is not an opportunity many people get.
No.
And actually, you can be part of that. You can deliver that, and get what you need out of it. As far as I'm concerned, if everyone is successful, that's better for all of us. So yes, absolutely, Harlow is the place to be.
And so you obviously have this unique opportunity. What does good look like in 10 years? What does that place look like if you've nailed your job of doing this generational change? So
I'll start with sort of the negative, which is. What does it not look like, which is what it is now, is probably a big starting point, because it's not easy. This, if it were, everywhere would do it, and it would be straightforward. It doesn't, just because we have a clear view on it, doesn't mean it's straightforward. But what it does look like is genuinely a fantastic place that's thriving, that people can grow up in, go to a fantastic school, get a great job, buy their own home, have a family, live in a wonderful neighbourhood, safe street. Quintessential view on what good looks like is exactly what we want to do. But also that Harlow is on the map as a place to come and start a business, to grow a business, to live, to work, all of those things. So, big job.
So the partnership with Hill, it sort of seems so obvious. Lots of other councils are really struggling to deliver their own housing. Even the Southwarks and Barking and Dagenham, who have had a great success. I think Southwark was the largest house builder of affordable homes in the country, now really struggling to make their own sites stack up. what advice would you give to them? What are your learnings, your takeaways from this pretty simple JV that you've done with Hill?
Yeah, I mean,
is it the key to unlocking things for them?
Yes, I think it absolutely is. Again, it's not easy. I've heard plenty of things whilst we've been in Leeds about local authorities particularly struggling, even when they own the land and all those sort of things, struggling to get this stuff moving forward. But there's a few things I'd say. One is you've got to stop looking at the investment as debt. It's not. It's an investment into the future, and you've got all the well-documented benefits of that stuff. That doesn't change the bottom line of your HRA often, but like I said, the big difference having a JV with Hill is you've both got skin in the game. Where I think too many people go wrong is they're not prepared to take that risk or their perceived risk. Like I say, I think it's a far bigger risk having thousands of people living in temporary accommodation and not growing the place and not regenerating. I think that's a far bigger risk than the financial one that presents. But like I say, I think there is an interesting mindset some people have about but look at the debt it's going to create, or look at that's absolutely not the way to view it. It's not a bad thing to build homes for people. No. It's not ever really going to go that wrong.
Yeah. Well, tell Woking that.
I grew up in Woking. I know it well.
Skills required for doing this. Have you had to? It's one of your 6 pillars. I think was sort of like the management of the council itself and the sort of the people.
Yeah.
Have you had to kind of bring in people from a sort of property background to assist with doing this, because it sits outside of what the normal council duties are?
It's really interesting actually. So one of our 6 missions about transforming the council, and that's not just for regeneration purposes. It's the whole way the council operates and the way it deals with all sorts of things. I have taken quite an unapologetic view about bringing people in with expertise who don't necessarily come from a local authority background. If you look at the most senior team I just recruited, every single one of them is private sector. That's quite deliberate. And that's not to say that councils do things badly, but as you say, we're trying to do something that councils don't ordinarily do, and therefore you need to take a different approach. And I'm not ashamed of that whatsoever. But actually, part of it is the council recognising, and the whole council and everyone that works for it, recognising our job is to build Harlow's future. That's what we're there to do. And therefore, everyone's got a part to play in that, and doing what we've always done will not deliver that.
I think it's really exciting, and actually the question I was thinking of earlier was in terms of lots of other councils do developments but don't necessarily always think they're taking the risk, but it doesn't stop projects going over budget and things. There's how many projects can you name that weren't part of a JV that did have issues? So actually, if you're part of the JV, you also get the upside, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So you share the risk, you share the reward.
So I think it's a kind of more business way of thinking about it, rather than just, we'll try and offset the risk, but then actually in reality the council often does foot the bill when a project goes wrong. What is your vision for Harlow? I think would be good to end on, so we can ask that question. So it is really exciting. Can you set out what you see as this vision for Harlow in say 2035?
Yeah, so at the moment Harlow is an incredible place, right? It invented everything from fibre optics to Baileys to the post-it note, Prozac antidepressants, the lawnmower. Everything good about the world was invented in Harlow. So it's actually built, and the concept, the master planning of it, the 15-minute neighbourhoods, the amount of green space, all of those things, it was built with absolute innovation at its heart. That hasn't been lost. That sort of spirit of innovation and change and people having a great quality of life. What has been lost is the place element of it, and it's that is obvious for lots of people to see, and residents absolutely feel it, and businesses feel it. In 10 years' time, I hope that people feel very different about that, and they feel that it is the hub of activity again. It is a regional destination. It is a place where big business comes back and invests and creates thousands of jobs, and we are the home of the UK Health Security Agency and all those sort of things. And at the heart of that, and this is something we so often overlook in development, is people feel proud of it. People feel proud to live there, proud to say I live in Harlow, or my kids go to school in Harlow, or whatever it might be. That is at the heart of it, because that's what all of this is centred around. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Dan. We look forward to helping you or working
Indeed.
with you on that vision.
Yep.
And it's a very exciting time for everyone involved in Harlow. Thank you so much for your time today on the
Thank
podcast.
you.
Thank you very much, Dan. It's great to have you on.
Cheers.